There's different melodies for this, but this is the way that I learned how to do it. Cheto darpana marjanam bhava mahadavagnirvapanam shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidyavadhu jivanam anandam burivardhanam pratiparam purnamritasvaranam sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etadrishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrisha Hajaninanuragaha Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadaharihi Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitamba Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Shware Bhavatar Bhakti Rahaitu Twai Ahi Nandatanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Budho Kripaya Tava Para Pankaja Stitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galadashudharaya Vadanam Gadgadarudhaya Gira Puluka Nishchitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati Yugayatam Nimeshena Chakshusha Pravrashayatam Shunyayatam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Ashlishyava Padaratam Punashtumam Adharshanan Marmahatam Karotu Va Yata Tata Va Vidadhatu Lampato Mat Prananatastu Sa Eva Naparaha. In unison, glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years together and thus extinguishes the blazing fire of conditioned life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it helps to have a taste of the full nectar for which we are always anxious.
O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction upon the living beings, and therefore you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna, Govinda, etc. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies, and there is no hard and fast rule for chanting these holy names. O my Lord, you have so kindly made approach to you easy by your holy names, but unfortunate as I am, I have no attraction for them.
One can chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking himself lower than the straw on the street, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth.
O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen into this horrible ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of birth of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And when will the hairs on my body stand on end at the recitation of your name?
O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering
handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipable Lord unconditionally. Shri Shikshashtakam ki jai.
we don't have it in this book though. At least that'll make it easy for us. Yeah, we used to someday. Let's do it. Let's kind of Alright, so we'll do 48. Sri Damodar Ashtaka, which we were just doing that. We can sing one. Yeah, we can do that. Namamishwaram Sachir Anandarupam Lasakundalam Gokule Brajamanam Yashodabhiyolugaladavamanam Param Rishnamatyan Tato Drutagopya
Rudantam mohonetra yugmam rejantam karamboja yugmena satanka netram muhushwasakam patrire kankakantam stitam graivam damodaram bhaktibadam.
Etidrik Savalalabir Anandekunde Swagosam Nimajantam Akiyampayantam Tadishita Jinesu Bhakter Jitirvam Punaha Prematasta Satar Satavriti Vande.
Varam deva moksham na mokshavadim va nachanyang vrinehang varishadapiha idang teva purnata gopala balang sada me manasya virastakimanyai.
Idam te mukam bodham adyantanai nile ritam kuntalai signa raktaisa gopya muhas kum viktam bimba raktad harame Manasya Samalam Lakshadai Bhai.
Namo Deva Damodar Ananta Vishnu Prasida Prabho Dukkha Jalabhimagnam Kripa Drusti Drustyati Dinam Batanu Grahane Shamam Jagnam Esagvidrushya.
Kuveratmajo Bada Mudaiva Yadvat Toya Mojito Bhakti Bhajo Krito Cha Tata Prema Bhakti Sakame Priyascha Namo Kshegraho Mesti Damo Dareha.
Namaste Sudamne Spura Diptidamne Tvadiyo Dharayata Vishwasya Dhamne Namo Radhikaya Tvadiya Priyaya Namo Nantalilaya Devaya Tubhyam. Translation in unison. To the Supreme Controller, who possesses an eternal form of blissful knowledge, whose glistening earrings swing to and fro, who manifested himself in Gokula, who stole the butter that the gopis kept hanging from the rafters of their storerooms, and who then quickly jumped up and ran in retreat in fear of Mother Yashoda, but was ultimately caught, to that Supreme Lord Sri Damodar, I offer my humble obeisances.
Upon seeing his mother's whipping stick, he cried and rubbed his eyes. Upon seeing his mother's whipping stick, he cried and rubbed his eyes again and again with his two lotus hands. His eyes were fearful and his breathing quick, and his mother Yashoda bound his belly with ropes. He shivered in fright and his pearl necklace shook. To this Supreme Lord, Sri Damodaraya, who is bound with his devotees' love, I offer my humble obeisances.
Again, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. O my Lord, I offer my obeisances hundreds and thousands of times with all affection because by your personal pastimes you plunged the gopis into an ocean of nectar. Appreciating your opulence, devotees generally declare that you are always subjugated by their feelings.
O Lord, I do not ask you for liberation or any material facility up to the point of liberation. What I want is your favor, is that I may always think of your form in which I see you now, as Damodara. You are so beautiful and attractive that my mind does not want anything besides this wonderful form.
O Lord, the cheeks of your blackish lotus face, which is encircled by locks of curling hair, have become reddened with bimba fruit due to Mother Yashoda's kisses. What more can I describe than this? Millions opulences are of no use to me, but this vision constantly remain in my mind.
O unlimited Vishnu, O Master, O Lord, be pleased upon me. I am drowning in an ocean of sorrow and am almost like a dead man. Please shower the rain of mercy on me. Uplift me and protect me with your nectarian vision.
O Lord Damodar, in your form as a baby mother, Yashoda bound you to a grinding stone with a rope for tying cows. You then freed the sons of Kuvera, Mani, Griva, and Nalukuvara, who were cursed to stand as trees, and you gave them the chance to become your devotees. Please bless me in the same way. I have no desire for liberation into your effulgence.
O Lord, the entire universe was created by Lord Brahma, who was born from your abdomen, which was bound with a rope by Mother Yashoda. To this rope I offer my humble obeisances. I offer my obeisances to your most beloved Srimati Radharani and to your unlimited pastimes. Jai.
Let's do this one. Sri Nama Kirtana. Shomatina 25. Yashomati Nandana Brajobado Nagada Gokula Ranjana Kana. Yashomati Nandana Brajobado Nagada. Yashomati Nandana Brajabado Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana. Gopi Paranadana Mana Monohara Kaliya Dhamma Vidhana Paranadana Madana Monahara Kaliya Dhamma Gopi Paranadana Madana Monohara Kaliya Dhamma Vidhana Amala Harina Mamiya Vilasa Amala Harina Mamiya Vilasa Vipi Puranandara Navinina Gora Bora Bamshi Badana Suvasa Pina Purandara Navina Vipana Purandara Navina Nagora Bora Bhamshi Badana Suvasa.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Srimate Dhanavirga Swamini Tinamine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatadine. I think we're on chapter 8, text 24. Agnir Jyotir Aha Shukla Sanmasa Uttarayanam Tatra Prayata Gachanti Brahma Vido Janaha. Those who know the Supreme Brahman pass away from the world during the influence of the fiery god in the light at an auspicious moment, during the fortnight of the moon and the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. Dumo ratris tata Krishnaha sanmasa dakshinayanam tatra chandramasam jyotir yogi prapya nivartate. The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the moonless fortnight, or in the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, or who reaches the moon planet again comes back. Shukla Krishna gati hyete jagata shashvate mate ekaya yanavritim anyaya vartate punaha. According to the Vedas, there are 2 ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back, but when one passes in darkness, he returns. Naite Shri Parta or Naite Shriti Parta Janan Yogi Muyati Kashchana Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Yoga Yukto Bhavarjuna. The devotees who know these 2 paths, O Arjuna, are never bewildered. Therefore be always fixed in devotion. Vedeshu yagyeshu tapashu chaiva daneshu yat punya palam pradishtam atyeti tat sarvam idam viditva yogi param stanam upaiti chadyam. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing austere sacrifices, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. At the end, he reaches the supreme abode. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of attaining the supreme. That's 4 texts, now 6 more texts in chapter 9. The most confidential knowledge, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Idam tu te guyatamam pravaksham yanusuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yajgatva mokshase shubhat. The Supreme Lord said, My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most secret wisdom, knowing which, is it doing the thing again where it just gets louder and quieter? No? Okay. I shall impart to you this most secret wisdom, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyakshravagamam Dharmyam Shusukam Kartum Avyayam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. Ashradadana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapya Mam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Vartmani. Those who are not faithful on the path of devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of foes. but return to birth and death in this material world. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina matstani sarvabhutani na chaham teshvavastitaha. By me and my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Nacha matstani bhutani pashya me yogam aishvaram bhuta brin nacha bhuta sto mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold, my mystic opulence, although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, still myself is the very source of creation. Yata kasha stito nityam vayu sarvatra go mahan tata sarvani bhutani matstan nityupadaraya. As the mighty wind blowing everywhere always rests in ethereal space, know that in the same manner all beings rest in me. Okay. I guess I'll choose from the verses that we read because we have 18 minutes. So the first one that stood out is chapter 8, text 28. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing austere sacrifices, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. At the end, he reaches the supreme abode. So one who engages in Krishna's devotional service, he's never the loser. No matter how much one gives to Krishna, he's not the loser. Like we see Bali Maharaj is the great example. He gave everything to Krishna. He conquered the 3 worlds, even though he was from the family of the Suras, the demons. He was a great devotee, and he conquered all the 3 worlds, the heavenly planets that the demigods rule, the lower planets, and everything in between. And when Krishna came as Vamanadev, he said he's wanted to just beg 3 steps of land, and he came as a little dwarf Brahmana. So when he begged these 3 steps of land, his teacher Shukracharya told him, Don't do what he says. He's Vishnu. He'll take everything. And then we understand. He gave Krishna everything anyways. But he wasn't the loser. Krishna made him bereft of everything, Vamanadev. He took everything from him and cast him down into some lower planet. And it seems like, oh wow, he really lost. But then we see Bali Maharaj now got Krishna, Vamanadev, as his intimate associate. He agreed to become his doorman. So it's looking like he lost everything, but then he actually gains the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead eternally in such an intimate way. So no one's the loser when they give everything to Krishna. And someone who takes the devotional service, they're not derived of the results of any of these things, studying the Vedas. So what do you get from studying the Vedas? One thing is you get knowledge. That also comes. Arjuna's saying, maybe I should go to the forest and just think of you, cultivate knowledge of you. And Krishna tells him, better that you act for me, engage in my service. And then the knowledge will automatically come. By engaging in Krishna's service, one automatically learns, well, who am I serving? Why am I doing this service? How does it work? And all these things. The knowledge automatically comes. And if one knows Krishna, Prabhupada always makes that example, they know everything. So one who has a bona fide spiritual master, that person is supposed to know everything. So, and if one actually isn't, anyway, I was reading about Rasika Nanda because it was his appearance day a few days ago, and it's really fired up. So but if I'm gonna get totally sidetracked if I go into it, but I'll mention a bit of it after. The Vedas, so they get knowledge. They don't need to try to get that separately. By engaging in Krishna's service, they get knowledge. Looks like I'm doing some mudra. So then performing austere sacrifices, what do they get from that? What do you get from austere sacrifices? One of them is that you, by performing yagyas, yeah, that's the word used, yagyeshu. By performing yagya sacrifice, you go up. You don't go down. You go get good pious credit, go to the heavenly planets, get enjoyment like that. So that's also achieved by devotional service. One's not bereft of, if they give up performing these Vedic sacrifices to engage in Krishna service, they're not bereft. They also, Krishna explains, if someone engages in my service for a short time, they take birth again in a family of like rich people. If they engage in my service for a long time and then don't make it, they take birth again in a family of devotees. And it's also explained if someone is engaging in Krishna service, but they still have a strong propensity for sense gratification, material enjoyment, then he lets them do that. They can go to the heavenly planets, be a devotee, and also they have their, sense gratification in the heavenly planets. And then they're not bereft of the results of giving charity. What do you get from giving charity? Pious credits. They get all of that from devotional service. And then pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities, material. Pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Well, they get everything, like that devotee explains. The liberation and all of these things are standing at his door waiting for his command because he's taken to the service of Krishna. So nothing is excluded. If one engages in the service of Krishna, everything is achieved. That's why the devotees, they don't mind. Maharaj mentioned a comment on this when we were reading it maybe a few months ago. He said, I was wondering how sometimes, I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying, I was wondering why sometimes devotees, they do these big, like a parikrama or some large devotional activity with a whole group of people, and they say, all the credit for this activity, it's all going to go to this person. They say like that. He was wondering, he was saying, like, I was wondering, well, why would they do that? It's like there's a lot that's coming from this activity, and they're saying that they're going to give it all to this other person. But in this, he was pointing out that in this verse we can see why, because by engaging in devotional service unceasingly, they're getting everything all of the time. So they're never bereft. So they don't mind giving all the result of some activity to someone else. So here's the purport. This verse is the summation of the 7th and 8th chapters, particularly as the chapters deal with Krishna consciousness and devotional service. One has to study the Vedas under the guidance of the spiritual master and undergo many austerities and penances while living under his care. A brahmachari has to live in the home of the spiritual master just like a servant, and he must beg alms from door to door and bring them to the spiritual master. He takes food only under the master's order, and if the master neglects to call the student for food that day, the student fasts. These are some of the Vedic principles for observing brahmacharya. After the student studies the Vedas under the master for a period from 5 to 25 years, he may become a man of perfect character. Study of the Vedas is not meant for the recreation of armchair speculators, but for the formation of character. After this training, the brahmachari is allowed to enter into household life and marry. When he is a householder, he also has to perform many sacrifices and strive for further enlightenment. Then, after retiring from household life, upon accepting the order of vanaprastha, he undergoes severe penances such as living in forests, dressing with tree bark, not shaving, etc. By carrying out the orders of brahmachari, householder, vanaprastha, and finally sannyas, one becomes elevated to the perfectional stage of life. Some are then elevated to the heavenly kingdoms, and when they become even more advanced, they are liberated in the spiritual sky, either in the impersonal Brahmajyoti or in the Vaikuntha planets or Krishna Loka. This is the path outlined by Vedic literatures. The beauty of Krishna consciousness, however, is that by one stroke, by engaging in devotional service, one can surpass all rituals of the different orders of life. One should try to understand the 7th and 8th chapters of the Gita not by scholarship or mental speculation, but by hearing them in association with pure devotees. Chapters 6 through 12 are the essence of the Gita. If one is fortunate to understand the Gita, especially the middle 6 chapters, in the association of devotees, then his life at once becomes glorified beyond all penances, sacrifices, charities, speculations, etc. So Lord Chaitanya was asking Ramananda Rai, who's a great devotee, all of these different questions. And one of the questions that he asked him was, what is the greatest suffering in the world? And Ramananda Rai is giving perfect answers. It's perfect questions and perfect answers because God is asking the questions. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. And Ramananda Rai says that you're actually just speaking, you're causing my mouth to move and just speaking through my mouth. But you're also asking the questions. How strange this is. Anyway, and then they go on with the conversation. So Lord Chaitanya, he asked him, what's the greatest suffering in this world? And Ramananda Rai said, I don't know any suffering other than losing the association of the devotee of the Lord. So we see one should hear the Gita from the devotee and in the association of devotees, and then everything can be understood. Through association, or one should hear the Gita from the devotee because at the beginning of the 4th chapter, it is stated that the Gita can only be perfectly understood by devotees. Hearing the Gita from devotees, not from mental speculators, is called faith. Through association of devotees, one is placed in devotional service. And by this service, Krishna's activities, form, pastimes, name, etc. become clear, and all misgivings are dispelled. Then once doubts are removed, the study of the Gita becomes extremely pleasurable. So while doubts are there, it's described it's like a jaundice condition while one's identifying with this material body. So even though topics about Krishna and the soul are eternally sweet and relishable, to one who has the jaundice of this skin disease, identifying with this skin, the body, it's like tastes bitter, just like with sugar candy, but that sugar candy is actually the cure for jaundice. So they go on taking it even though it's bitter, and eventually it becomes sweet and relishable. So similarly, that is the same with the Gita, as long as the doubts are there. But once doubts are removed, the study of the Gita becomes extremely pleasurable, and one develops a taste and feeling for Krishna consciousness. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna, and that is the beginning of the highest perfectional stage of life, which prepares the devotee's transferal to Krishna's abode in the spiritual sky, Goloka Vrindavan, where the devotee enters into eternal happiness. Yeah, I'll read a little more. This is the next verse. The Supreme Lord said, My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most secret wisdom, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Purport. As a devotee hears more and more about the Supreme Lord, he becomes enlightened. This hearing process is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The messages of the personality of Godhead are full of potencies, and these potencies can be realized if topics regarding the Supreme Godhead are discussed amongst devotees. This cannot be achieved by the association of mental speculators or academic scholars, for it is realized knowledge. So that's Sankirtan. Devotees come together and they chant the glories of the Lord, and that's the process for this day and age. So when we're together in the association of devotees, Krishna can be realized, and he can manifest himself in that situation where the devotees are chanting his glories. And then great realizations of the Supreme Lord can take place from within that association of devotees. The devotees are constantly engaged in the Supreme Lord's service. The Lord understands the mentality and sincerity of a particular living entity who is engaged in Krishna consciousness and gives him the intelligence to understand the science of Krishna in the association of devotees. Discussion of Krishna is very potent, and if a fortunate person has such association and tries to assimilate the knowledge, then he will surely make advancement towards spiritual realization. Lord Krishna, I know we're doing a lot of reading, but please hear it very attentively, because by hearing it, we can solve all the problems of life and achieve pure devotional service, love of Godhead in this lifetime, and go back to the spiritual world. Lord Krishna, in order to encourage Arjuna to higher and higher elevation in his potent service, describes in this 9th chapter matters more confidential than any he has already disclosed. The very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, the 1st chapter, is more or less an introduction to the rest of the book. And in the 2nd and 3rd chapters, the spiritual knowledge described is called confidential. Topics discussed in the 7th and 8th chapters are specifically related to devotional service, and because they bring enlightenment in Krishna consciousness, they are called more confidential. But matters which are described in the 9th chapter deal with unalloyed pure devotion. Therefore, this is called the most confidential. One who is situated in the most confidential knowledge of Krishna is naturally transcendental. He therefore has no material pangs, although he is in the material world. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is said that although one who has a sincere desire to render loving service to the Supreme Lord is situated in the conditioned state of material existence, he is to be considered liberated. Similarly, we shall find in the Bhagavad Gita, the 10th chapter, that anyone who is engaged in that way is a liberated person. So the more we hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the association of devotees, the more we understand Krishna. And one who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not take birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, Krishna explains. So it's a very important part or practice in devotional service is this hearing. Just like when someone's sleeping, if there's a fire in their house, someone might, you might smell the smoke, they might be bright from the fire, so many things. But when someone yells that, hey, there's fire, get up, then they wake up. So the hearing process is extremely important, and that's actually how we understand about Krishna, by hearing the transcendental sound vibration, which is coming from the mouth of the pure devotee, like we're hearing in Prabhupada's purports, or those who try to relate the same thing, and from the hearing from the spiritual master. So on that topic, I was reading about Rasikananda Prabhu, because we didn't get to speak about him, but I read about him like maybe the last 3 days. And his spiritual master was named Shyamananda. And so Shyamananda was speaking on the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Rasikananda was listening to him in the class, and Rasikananda turned his head for a moment and wasn't hearing, and Shyamananda became furious and he kicked him twice, and Rasikananda fell over. And then after falling over, he paid obeisances to the lotus feet of his spiritual master, and he was extremely grateful, saying that with these 2 kicks, my sinful reactions and desires have been kicked off by Shyamananda Prabhu. And there was another king also, who Shyamananda Prabhu and Rasikananda Prabhu, they were going all throughout Utkala. They got this instruction from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and also many of his representatives and devotees to deliver all these sinful people in Utkala, which is like Utkala, Utkala. And it was a really sinful place. People there were engaging in animal slaughter. They didn't give a fig about the Vedas. They didn't know at all, even never heard of Krishna. It just sounded like, like where we're living today, in like a city like this. And so it was a state, Utkala, like there were cities in it. So they got this mission from the Lord to just preach Krishna consciousness, do Sankirtan throughout Utkala, and give love of God to all these inhabitants. So they're just going around all these different places and making disciples left and right and giving people the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and bring people to pure devotional service. And so they went to this one king because he was so sinful that this was their main target. Is they would find out, okay, there's someone who's like the head guy of this city. He's so sinful. He's more sinful than Jagai and Madai. Everyone's afraid of him. He's a wretch. We got to go make him a devotee because if he becomes a devotee, it'll be, that'll like really be good for convincing others to become devotees as well. So there is this king in this particular city, and he was very sinful. Everyone was afraid of him. All sinful activities, animal slaughtering, and all of this. And I'm expecting, when I'm reading it, I'm expecting they're going to go to these places, and it's going to be like this big, like, preaching, like, brawl, and they're going to, like, say all these good arguments. And that is happening sometimes, but there's also many times where, by the desire of the pure devotee to make others Krishna conscious, Krishna just makes the arrangement to enlighten them to do the proper thing. And it's like, at least it sounds like it's easy as cake. They go, and so this guy is a big demon, this king, and they go to try to make him a devotee. And as they're on the way there, the king is sleeping in his bed, and this this figure enters his room. And that unknown visitor, in a very sober, in a grave voice, says, what did he say? He said, surrender to Shamananda Prabhu, in like a very like grave voice. And king is like, what? And so he was anxious to find out who is the Shamananda Prabhu. And then right then, both Rasikananda and Shamananda arrive, and the king lets them in, and he just surrenders to Shamananda's lotus feet. And so then there's all this nice thing with they're preaching to the king's advisors and the brahmanas there. And even though the king says, I'm surrendering to them, the brahmanas, or the bhattacharyas, say, well, wait, why don't you at least let us, debate, because we're always preaching to you and advising you. Why don't you let us debate with him first? And if his arguments are better, then we'll take his religion. So they do that, and Rasikananda and Shamananda just, from every different angle, like Patanjali yoga system, Mimamsa philosophy, all the different types of theories, they go through all of them and show how each of these establishes Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and worship to him as the topmost. They go through every theory and type of philosophy and show how it establishes Krishna as the top. So the king and all his advisors and everyone, they said, okay, we can't beat any of his arguments. We surrender to him, and they did that. And then later on, some much time later, because they spent some time in that king's kingdom, Rasikananda is speaking Bhagavatam to the king and everyone in the palace, and they're listening. And the king's like messenger or like manager person comes in. And when he came into the palace, the king just briefly diverted his attention away from the Bhagavatam and away from Rasikananda. And the king's own minister, he rebukes him in front of everyone and says, you are such a fool and a rascal. And he smacked the king. And the king fainted. And everyone was ready to kill this minister, actually, because they were like dumbstruck. How is he going to go up and smack the king? And so the king, quickly realizing what was about to happen, he came to, and he actually paid his obeisances to the feet of the minister. And he said, yes, I was actually being so sinful. I'm like, thank you so much for like correcting this. And so I liked both of those examples because we see the importance of actually hearing from the spiritual master and hearing from the devotees. It's so important, we see from those examples. So anyway, and like Srila Prabhupada said, as a devotee hears more and more about the Supreme Lord, he becomes enlightened. So we should hear very attentively, and in that way become enlightened in Krishna consciousness. And give others the chance to hear attentively by distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.